How do I prepare for treading water at selection? That's a pretty common question, and often that question comes in an email or direct message from someone who has just failed the tread in second phase, or they've been struggling trying to figure out how do I practice for that thing, because that thing typically is something that people worry about, right? Like the drown proofing, the treading. There's certain milestones in the selection that people tend to focus on and worry about. And I look at it as a really pretty obvious, simple thing. It's not that complex in terms of its practice and how to resolve that issue. The problem is that I look at it like this. I use running as a great example as why so many people have trouble with running, and it's because a couple reasons. And the biggest reasons are most people that are trying to improve their running are not runners. They're not running body type. They are jumping right into a running volume that is advertised by people who run all the time. And so not being 110 pounds, right? 190, 200 pounds plus, wherever guys are, and then they start accumulating mileage by runners from books, magazines, and coaches saying, oh, if you want to run this distance and you need to be able to run this much mileage a week. It's like, okay, that's great, but I can't even run a mile without deficiency. And so there becomes this problem in running that's like, I don't know how to plan a program. Like, well, you're just not running right, technically, and you're running far too much. And that is pretty much exactly the reason why people struggle with the tread. A couple things, and this is from my experience as a swimmer and a coach, is it's the same idea. People have these milestones that they're worried about, and they're like, well, I gotta jump in and do it. And they're like, well, I can't do it. Oh my God, what is going on? Why can't I do this thing? And like, well, you've never practiced it. And so now it's difficult, especially when you have this stress of, this is important to me, I gotta do all this work, there's these scary milestones, oh my God, what do I do, what do I do? Well, it's really quite simple. Have you ever heard of a swimmer or a water polo athlete having difficulty treading? I think, well, I mean, maybe you don't realize or don't think like, well, do swimmers do much treading? Well, if they did, they could fucking tread for days. Why? Because they have the techniques, they have the position. That's what I'm gonna go through. People's inability to do that tread with those twin 80s on in second phase, it's because you're kicking and your position is inefficient. And it's that inefficiency of position and propulsion, those two big things, make the workload so very hard that you can't effort through it, right? And so we think it's like, oh my God, how do I work harder and do these things? And you don't. You have to become efficient. And that's why we say you don't go in until you have the numbers that, including treading, is a very, very, very easy thing for swimmers and for water polo athletes. So we're going to use them as, well, how is it how is it easy for them other than the obvious? Well, that is the answer. It's like, this is why my advice has always been, if you want to be good at all of these swimming events, you should become a decent swimmer. Not because at the end of the day, it does not in any way impact your ability to tread. Treading inefficiently out of position. Well, okay, so what is the position? Well, that's, again, are you doing the water polo version of the egg beater? Are you doing the swimmer version with the flutter or dolphin? And the question is like, I don't know. Well, you've got to decide, first of all. So if you're doing the egg beater, the only time I would ever recommend doing the egg beater is if you have a history of water polo, or you have a real history of swimming. Why? Because that particular movement is extremely technical. It's extremely necessary to have crazy mobile ankles to scull with your ankles need to be just as active and mobile as you can your wrists. They need to be that mobile, because that floppy ankle is what's allowing for that egg beater to create whip and scull. If you have tight ankles, if you have difficulty running, you're never going to be able to do the egg beater without tiring yourself out, because you don't have the structure, right? It's like someone who grew up playing baseball all of a sudden wants to go play a sport that's completely opposite of that. but you spent all those years developing this sport of baseball, but now you don't. Or, I don't know why I can't play. I played this sport at a high level. They're not the same, okay? So the way that every swimmer and every water polo athlete gets to that point of ease, it's because they are good swimmers first. They understand propulsion, right? What's my kick frequency and what's my choice? That's step one. What is your frequency? Have you chosen it? Have you figured it out? Have you even chose the stroke and why? Because if you're having trouble swimming, if your horizontal stroke with fins is not efficient, like really efficient, then there is no way that without these, with an egg beater or a flutter or dolphin, are you going to have developed the work capacity to do that treading. Because we don't practice treading to improve treading. We practice treading to see what your position and propulsion are. Because if you haven't developed the right position, joined up with the right propulsion, you're never going to have the position to have the workload position to do the thing. It's just, that's the reality. So how do we do it? You fin. You do horizontal finning, working through the different types of fins that allow for higher and lower frequency efforts as you manipulate that range of motion of your hips. Not that complex. In simple terms, you have to develop the strength, the mobility, and the consistent work output to be able to achieve that. Because you in the water, at whatever your weight is, with the twin 80s, weigh roughly 80 pounds, right? That's why they're called twin 80s, or they 80 pounds of pressure in each tube or whatever. And you get in the water, there is an actual Newton's work output, like how much work, Newton's second, third law, how much work, hydrodynamics, how much work does this 170 pound person for 5 minutes carrying this much weight, how much work output is that? Well, it's a simple mathematical equation. Once you have that mathematical equation of your work output, now you can do your output for your horizontal effort in your swims. Because let's say the horizontal tread is going to take you 17,000 newtons of work, or 10,000. Well, if we start duplicating a 10 to 17,000 work output with the horizontal fin, well, now you've developed the work capacity. Just like, hey, I can't do 2 minutes of push-ups, but I need to find ways to develop 2 minutes of work in that phase so I can begin to get my strength endurance up. Because if you haven't developed the strength endurance of your hips and your torso, it doesn't matter if you're horizontal or if you're vertical, it's not going to happen, okay? So it's really like I'm trying to highlight some things so you realize, like, oh my God, it's just that unsexy. Learn how to swim. First, learn how to swim strokes. You should go into your city, you should find a master swim club, and you need to go in there and find those teachers and say, hey, this is what I'm intending on doing. I have to do this weird stroke or this freestyle. I want to join the military. Can somebody help me? And every time those master swim programs help out, okay? So treading is about maintaining posture. It's the same thing. If I'm swinging a bat and I get way out of posture, I've just taken away a lot of my power. If I'm swimming or if I'm treading and I'm way out of position and posture, you're doing more work than you need to. So swimming and treading, the very first thing it comes down to, what are you using to propel yourself? Is it a good kick? Is it a bad kick? Is it an efficient kick? Is it inefficient? And if it's inefficient, how are we going to work on it? It's your swimming, okay? With these, because like this is like putting weights on your feet. You have to move far more water, especially if you're in the right position. If your technique is really good in your practice, what are you doing? You're creating appropriate work effort. If you're out of position, you're teaching yourself to fail. Okay, so once you have your propulsion, you've worked on your kick frequency and you can maintain it for that duration. Step number one, we've got work capacity, good. We need to be able to swim without stopping with fins at a vigorous pace for at least 5 minutes. Because that's the deal, that's the test. Can you even put fins on? Swim with the same effort horizontally as you can with your tread. If you can't do that, you don't even have the work capacity to tread, because horizontal swimming is easier than treading. And if you can't horizontal swim for 10 minutes or 5 minutes, then why would you ever expect to be able to do horizontal treading or vertical, treading? So once we have our propulsion, all right, we have the right kick. Now what? I can take the right position. Instead of this really bad kick that's taking my upper body out of the position I'm really having to work, or I stay in line and I work my hips properly. So now I have position, right? Because I have propulsion. Once I have those two things, I can choose my direction. Okay? The direction is what people have trouble with, right? Swimming horizontally is a direction. Treading vertically in place is a direction. And those directions are based on your propulsion that establish your position, okay? That's simple, okay? You need to learn how to fin. You need to learn how to move a lot more water in a given time and be able to maintain that workload throughout that time. If you can't do that horizontally, you'll never ever be able to do it, right? I'm sorry, if you can't do it yet horizontally, you're never gonna be able to do it vertically with additional weight, right? That's the deal. Because the bigger fin that I have, the more water I move, right? And I tip myself vertical, I add more weight to me, I have got to move more water. So I have not practiced moving more water. When I go vertical, you're just gonna sink. So, just saying, man, if swim coaches all over the planet are using these to improve kick frequency, propulsion, and direction, I don't know. What they're not using are the shitty dive fins, right? They're not using flex fins. They're not using the rocket fins and all that garbage. Swimmers use swimming fins. I don't know. What a concept, right? No Olympic swimmers in the world are using shitty dive fins to improve their swimming. Why are you? Maybe that's also why you're having such a hard time treading water, is because the things you practice with were inferior tools. When you use inferior tools, you get inferior results, especially in a place that's gonna test your weakness. So get yourself some fins, get yourself a real swim coach, and get yourself the right process to develop your actual swimming technique so you don't ever have to worry about the tread. Because if you're worried about the tread, you're not ready for the swim.